My favorite thing she said, just coming back to that impact point for 1 second, I just saw it in my notes and I don't want to forget it, was she said rather than like the hockey stick growth curve, it's very Canadian, but the impact hockey stick growth curve. Love that. It's like the triple bottom line kind of thing. Last week, we spoke to Brooke Finlay about her business, Navio, and how it's helping people get through the gong-show of immigration bureaucracy. While her business was definitely impressive and disruptive, it was her passion for impact and helping people that really impressed Chris and I. It's a truly different startup. This week, Chris and I go deep on impact, bureaucracy, and disruption, and on the data behind it all. Let's get it. It's Startup Different. Hey, Dave here. Before we get into today's episode, Chris and I wanted to give you some exciting news. We wrote a book. Surprise! It's called Startup Different, the myth-busting blueprint for your multi-million-dollar business. And it comes out October 1st, 2024. Like our show, we're trying to pay it forward to our fellow entrepreneurs to help you learn from our successes and failures. The book busts over 33 myths, tells some of our most hilarious stories, and gives you many of our best tools to build, scale, and exit your business. Pre-orders for paperback, ebook, and audiobook start Labor Day, Monday, September 2nd. You'll find the book at all the major online retailers, including Amazon. Check it out. We think it's pretty great. And now, on to the show. Hello, folks, and welcome to Startup Different. He's Chris, and I'm Dave. It's another episode of the show. Chris, how you doing, my friend?
Very good. Can't complain.
Yeah, did you notice I did something different on the intro there?
What?
You were first. I said, he's Chris, I'm Dave. Normally,
Oh, yeah.
You didn't even care.
Yeah.
You didn't even...
I just assume I'm always second.
I think your formal title on this show is podcast sidekick, which, by the way, you chose.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Because I did not want to be.
You know, it's a lot of responsibility being the chief podcast officer, I must say. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me, my friend. Today we're talking about Navio, actually, which is Brooke Finlay's business. So we interviewed Brooke last week. It was a fantastic interview, really interesting. I feel like right near the end, which of course this always happens, but right near the end, we were really getting into a good swing with her. And actually, we had a good conversation afterwards the interview, which we'll share some details on here today as well. But it's really cool. I really enjoyed it. And I thought there were actually a lot of learnings that our folks here, studio audience, would really enjoy sort of getting more out of. I think for starters, I'm just going to do a quick background. So Navio is the company. Basically what it was is a platform that helps people through the insane bureaucracy that is immigrating into Canada. And so her background, as far as I recall, she was sort of like a consultant in that space. And basically the space was very consultant heavy, or still is. If you want to come into Canada and you've got the money for it, you're probably going to hire somebody to the tune of a professional services contract, basically, which could be very expensive,
right?
Kind of like a lawyer almost, to take you through the process. And what she found as one of those consultants was that she was involved in lots of things that she didn't have to do. That wasn't like she was too valuable to be part of that. Like in terms of cost, it was too valuable for her to be participating.
It was inefficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she kind of saw this opportunity that, hey, maybe there's a better way we can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that was her real thing, was she was right in that game and really understood that it was labor intensive, but unnecessarily labor intensive. Yeah. You didn't have people in the right seats. We use that analogy a lot, having people in the right seats. And there were things that were being done by expensive people in their firm that didn't need to be done by them. And it was a slow process. It was inefficient. It wasn't operationalized. It was very bespoke. It was like everybody was a unique,
very nice
situation. You like that?
Yeah.
I
don't use bespoke enough in everyday conversations. It was interesting. She also mentioned it was sort of like the turbo tax of immigration. I called it Turbo Canada.
Well, that's what she's doing now. The old thing was the non-turbo, was
Correct.
the old way of doing it, the old school.
The
way of
Navio,
doing
her
it.
platform, is sort of addressing that, becoming the turbo tax of
Exactly.
immigration.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was pretty cool because there's a couple of things that are interesting. Like first off, like in thinking about her story, right? Brooke could have easily continued with that job for a very long and fruitful career.
Yep.
And
very successful.
No issues, whatever.
Yep.
And something the entrepreneurship bug or whatever bit her, or maybe I think this is probably more accurate to really what it comes down to, is that she just saw that it just sucked for people.
Yeah.
Like the actual outcomes
Yeah.
were terrible.
It was a bad experience
For everyone. For the people processing it at Immigrations Canada, for the people going through it, obviously, who are applying, and actually for the consultants too. Like it was like they were part of this like grunt work that delivered pretty limited value, especially when you consider the cost of the entire thing.
So she decided to disrupt it.
Yes. Right? Well, I mean, this is like a true disruption. Right?
Yeah. We always joke about how like,
but this actually is though.
Companies like so many companies are like, we're going to disrupt the name market.
Insert
whatever.
industry name.
Yeah. But Navio actually is disrupting this market, which is very interesting.
Because she's taking an old way, which she thinks sucks. And rather than, and this, she said this in the interview too, like fundamentally rejecting the status quo, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? She's like, I'm not even going to look at the way it's done now. We're just going to flush that.
Yeah.
And how would we build this again today?
Yeah.
And that was really cool. And so, and anyway, so we got into it and she wanted to disrupt the system. That made sense. And the other thing too is that, and you think you actually asked this question or made this comment, I can't remember, during the interview where you said, you're trying to take something that is traditionally unscalable and make it scalable.
Right.
Right. And so that's the way this Navio platform is supposed to work.
Yeah.
Or is supposed to work now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Isn't that Masters of Scale?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Reid Hoffman and his show would definitely be all over this. But basically taking something that's really difficult and unscalable and making it scalable, you're effectively going to be a very wealthy person.
Exactly.
Right. And I think what was interesting about it too is that the thing about it that was unscalable was all the need for like this human interaction. But what she sort of thought about was this like gray glove approach.
Yeah.
This is what I coined this in the interview.
I looked this up.
Patent pending. It's not even patent. Trademark.
I've heard of like white glove treatment. Like that's kind of what we did with our product, with our apps, where we would white glove our customers through the entire process and that sort of stuff.
The implementation.
But it was arduous. It was very hands-on. It was complicated, time-consuming, all that sort of stuff.
I believe we used the term collaborative. Highly collaborative experience.
Yeah, and part of it was because we were submitting apps to the App Store and it got rejected. It was
unfortunately always a very technically involved process.
Yeah,
it's not easy to submit an app to the App Store.
Right. But I think what Brooke is doing is what. Now, did she coin this term or did you?
No, I did. We talked about this beforehand. We actually have already had an argument about this. I'm just doing a side soliloquy here to the.
I Googled it because I thought, oh, for sure that exists, but I couldn't actually find anything.
I don't think it's that novel, but I appreciate that you like it so much. As the person who coined it, it means a lot to me.
When I looked it up, all I found was literally gray colored gloves. So I think you might own this now.
Cool.
So the idea is like a gray glove
So
experience.
and what that is what?
Well, I guess it's like tech when you want it and people when you don't.
Yeah, I guess.
I think I stole that from something. There's something else that I use that term. But,
I'll assert you didn't coin that.
but they never called it gray gloves. So
That's right.
I think you got the gray glove piece.
But I think that's pretty interesting because it's like at the right moment when you need to so basically all the stuff that's like I don't want to call it the grunt work, but effectively the grunt work of this process is done and assisted by a piece of software. And then the really tough parts where there's like these read between the lines moments. Like, I mean, if anybody's ever, for folks in the U.S. who've gone down to the DMV, our other brother is struggling with this process right now. Good luck, Mike, Godspeed. Or here in Canada, just you're applying for a passport. There's a whole bunch of like little things that you sort of like need to know that aren't in the instructions,
right?
Yeah. Like you have to sign in the little signature box, like we were talking about,
right?
And having a person there to help you be like, oh, by the way, don't mess this up because if you mess this up, it's toast,
right?
You know what I mean?
This immediate rejection.
That's where the person shows up in the Navio platform and be like, oh, don't blow this part.
Yeah.
You're gonna blow it.
We'll need that to live. Yeah. I think that's a Simpsons reference, isn't it?
If word gets out about this, then Crazy Cloud Airlines will be a laughing stock. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. We need more Simpsons references on the show. But anyway, I thought that was really cool because I think that's the right way to deliver this. And one thing that, I think we have it later in our notes here, which I'm going analog, but later on in this is that people didn't want this process to be entirely automated.
Right.
There's too much nuance at times and complexities and these overlapping like bureaucratic rules that you actually need the person intervention. But because there's so little person intervention, like you're not doing it that often, it becomes very scalable.
Yeah.
You can have one person, one consultant who can really run the show for thousands of accounts potentially.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but lots of accounts.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. And also, she did mention at one point, too, that so she was at the Collision conference. We were supposed to meet with her there, but things got all messed up. But anyway, and she did mention, though, that she met with the Immigration Canada people there.
Yeah.
And they were like, how can we help you? I love, part of me loves that. Like, wow, that's great. A great opportunity with that. The other part of me, though, is like, what? Like, why?
Do governments acquire startups?
Whoa, I don't know.
Isn't that a crazy idea? I feel like no.
If you know, comment on this.
There's probably some guy that works in the government that does the acquisition.
Yeah, he's just
for the government.
matters.
He's like, what do you mean you don't know?
It's my whole job. He works at the PSPC or whatever. Yeah. Oh, PSPC, how we love thee. Yeah, but I think that was really interesting, though, that they were like, we know this is a problem. This is a terrible experience.
We can't fix our own thing.
And they're interested because they want her to make the applications better.
Yeah.
So it makes their jobs
easier. They probably don't want to have to deal with the rejections. Like they're like pre-vetted. By the time, I wonder if they can tell which ones came from the Navio system.
How could they not? Like, I'm sure they're way more put together.
Maybe.
I think that so again, this was kind of the other funny thing about Brooke is that we originally met, how old am I?
10 years ago?
No,
more than that?
I'm older.
Maybe 15 years ago?
15 to 18 years ago, Whoa. We met working at a constituency office for a member of parliament. Let's say, for you American folks, your congressperson. And basically we were doing these passport applications and seeing that whole process. But I just, I can't even remember exactly where I was going with this, but other than I think it's fascinating that there was this, we both had this experience in government that was just
this terrible experience. Because I think one of the examples you guys gave was people would sign incorrectly, like they'd go out of some line or something like that.
They would sign outside the signature box for your passport, which kills the entire application.
Really?
Actually, this is what I was trying to say. Because we were doing that and we were helping that human element, that process of helping people through the application, the people that came to us were vastly more successful. Right. I would say that of 10, let's say for 10 people that came in with a passport application that I would review, I would say 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 had a mistake.
Really?
So it's that's significant. Yeah. So if you imagine, and that's not even that complex.
Right.
It's 3 forms, 3 pages.
Wow.
Okay. So you can imagine on the complexity of a multi-year process to try to immigrate into Canada.
Yeah.
And I think also, by the way, her addressable market could be much larger once they start figuring out, the United States and our other countries.
Just think about all sorts of things you apply for with government, which is
that's another option too. It doesn't even have to be just immigration. It's just just managing the bureaucracy. You know? One of my favorite quotes, I don't even know who it is. I wish I was smart enough to know these sorts of things, but the quote is, the bureaucracy is expanding to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy.
I think it's that cartoon Futurama. I think
it is not Futurama.
I thought it was. Yeah. All right. All right. Fine. On to the next.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Did you get a history degree? Anyway, so that's pretty cool. She had another cool thing that I thought was interesting, which was she said that as the founder, because it was something new, she was managing a lot of the leads herself early on.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty cool. And that's a little throwaway comment, but something I think is actually really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that you think a lot of some founders anyway get into a business, something like this, and they don't really want to be in the trenches as much. So trying to get out of it pretty quickly.
They want to be,
they want to be the ideas person.
Yeah. I'll come up with the ideas.
I'm the Steve Jobs of this company. You go figure this out. I'll come up with the idea.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty cool and I think another sign that she is going to be very successful because she's in the business. She understands the importance of nurturing those leads, obviously. So she has a bias to, obviously, in her case, it's a little bit different, but it's still sales. She's still acquiring customer acquisition.
Right.
She understands the importance of that, and she understands that those have to go well.
Yeah.
You know,
especially the early ones.
Like that's going to be a heavy word of mouth business.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I'm assuming like people immigrate and then other members of family want to also immigrate.
And then there might be other people that those people know back in their home country
you want to figure out how to
get to try this Navio
use this Navio platform. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So incredibly important, the word of mouth for a small startup.
But I think her being in it is really what I want to hammer home here, that like, as especially early on, like I think about you, Chris.
Yeah.
And you were so exceptional and so dedicated to our customer service. Now you didn't do the sales, but you did, like, if something was going wrong, you were on that. I remember Joey, shout out to Joey, in our support group. He would always be like, I remember once in a while, I'd be like, Joey, how's the support desk going? Because he's the support manager. And he'd be like, it's good. Chris is lurking around right now. And because, it would show who's on a ticket. And it would just be like, Chris is here. Oh, he's gone. Chris is here. Chris is here. And to your credit, you did it because you knew that eventually if it didn't get solved, it was going to be a big problem for you later.
I knew it was going to be a phone call on my cell phone in the middle of the night or something like that if it was starting to bubble over.
And that was one of those things, though, where like your level of dedication to that, I think, made us much more competitive. Right. And it's one of those things where a founder delivers the kind of intensity and value and the knowledge that it's just really difficult for an employee to replicate.
Right.
You know what I mean? They are going to go to the mat.
Yeah. I know when we've done big development projects and things like that too, it's tough to have an employee go and be the one working directly with the client and, spearheading
custom projects,
a new custom project. Yeah. Because it's so important for, the founders or the C-suite or the people that are running the company to really understand how that's being built out and why things are important. I think as we went on, when we were doing something new, usually I was directly involved in that project. And then I think by the end, that was pretty much what I was doing. I wasn't really doing any, tech debt or anything like that. I was trying to do all these new features and things like that we were incubating with customers and trying to make sure they went well, because we really needed to not only make that customer happy, but have a product that was sellable at the other end as well. So we didn't end up with an orphan.
Yeah.
So I think with Brooke, her doing those initial leads and understanding, going through that process, I guess gray gloving the process, probably herself, was super important. Yeah.
I just shameless plug here for our upcoming book, Startup Different, the myth-busting blueprint for your multi-million-dollar business, that comes out in October. Pre-order started on Labor Day. We write in there though too that the tough things you got to do as a founder, and that is a thing that carries on all the way through. There is no time where I actually think that's when businesses start to lose their way, when they get so big that the founder's so disconnected from the customer or from like the people that are using it or experiencing the product or whatever. That's when things start to fray. It starts to be a disconnect. Anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now that I also, so by the end of the interview, we got to this like really cool zone where we were in flow together. And so what it was is she starts talking about the mission of the company. And you could see that she's a really like principled person.
Yeah.
And she started talking about how she wanted to make people feel more supported. And I'm just reading from my notes here because I don't want to get it wrong. Imagining like what these people could do coming into Canada. And it's funny because, so we just, a couple episodes ago, we had our interview with Mehdi Basiri to start this season. And Mehdi, being somebody who was an international student who immigrated to Canada from Iran and created a unicorn. We learned all these things about how it turns out more than half of unicorns are from immigrants or have some connections to effectively people who've immigrated into the country.
Right.
Like, it's unbelievable when you think that what she's doing, that relative impact could actually be enormous.
Yeah.
Billions and billions of dollars, right? And so it's just fascinating there. And she said this one thing that I really like. She said, scaling our business, but also scaling our impact.
Yeah.
And you could tell that she was way more focused on the impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I think and she went to business school too, just like us. And by the way, we also cared about impact, but it was interesting to hear her kind of negotiate this. Well, the more successful we are, the bigger our impact.
Right. They're not like,
they're not mutually exclusive.
Like making a profit doesn't mean that you're somehow you're evil and
Right.
you've not having a real impact on society. In fact, I think I'd argue in order to have a real impact on society, you have to be profitable because you won't be doing it very long if you're not profitable.
Yeah, exactly. Your mission will not be realized.
Exactly.
Your vision for the mission.
You will
not be
run out of
realized.
gas. You will run out of funds, and you will not be able to have a big impact anymore if you're not profitable.
Like she said that she used to feel guilty when like she was making deals, and I'm just like, that's absurd. But
Must have
that's
been pre-business school. I feel like.
well, like I think what it is to some extent, and I think we all kind of feel this way, is there are some, like everybody kind of gets, this is use a Canadian term for a second, everybody gets kind of hosed by a corporation at some point. You go, those profit-driven, bastards, that whole thing. And I really think like for founders, and maybe this is a uniquely Canadian thing, possibly the Pacific Northwest, because they're basically Canada Junior, is like, it's okay to make a profit.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's going to further the awesome thing you're doing, make it more legit. It's the same with like social enterprises and stuff that are not for profits. Like ultimately, you're going out and you're making a sale.
I think the way I said it was better.
No.
Making a profit is required to have an impact.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I
that
mean?
is actually pretty good. I'm not going to lie.
Like it is.
I don't usually agree with you.
Okay. I got one.
So agree
finally.
to disagree. No, it's true. It is very true. And actually, I did find some research on this because I kind of got thinking about this. Like implicitly, this seems true that if a business has a better mission or is more impact driven, that it could be more successful or ought to be more successul.
Right.
The data is that it's sort of like an across the board benefit, which doesn't surprise me. But I wanted to know if it was real or not. So just looking for my notes here. There's you can actually look her up, Wendy Lipton Dibner, the very famous like author, entrepreneur, probably the leading voice on businesses being driven by impact.
Yep.
And she did all these like empirical studies over the last 30 years or so. Don't quote me on that. That might be wrong, but at least over a long period of time.
Yep.
And basically, it was like everything from like company culture to sales results to acquisition price to like all the actual people they helped, obviously. And even in her personal experiences, she built out this business that was all about helping people and making. I don't want to go too into it because we're talking about Brooke's business here today. But she built this business out, and it eventually fell apart because she got too far away from the impact that it was creating, the positive impact. She got too far away from the business.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because it kind of segues also into what we were just talking about before.
Yeah.
You can't be too far away from the business.
Right on.
So,
yeah.
So what else did you think? I mean, like there was one other thing that I wanted to throw out there for you in particular.
Yeah.
That she has no tech founder.
I know. We've had a few of these lately.
I don't like it.
I don't like it one bit.
I don't like it one bit.
No,
Brooke, I know you're watching. It's fine. It's fine. But
yeah, I think this has been interesting though, because I have kind of always just assumed that if it was a tech startup, there was one of the founders was the coder, the engineer, the whatever. And we've now run into a number of businesses where they didn't have a tech person as one of the founders. And it is making me question because these businesses are awesome.
Yeah.
So maybe this isn't a prereq. Maybe this isn't necessarily a requirement to have a successful tech startup, is to have a tech.
We should have an episode
person
on this.
Yeah.
I think we should. But
I don't have the data with me right now, so maybe you're right. It might be a really good idea that we go deep.
you know what I
on
mean?
that.
Like I don't want to be wrong on this. Not that, I mean, I'm sure I've said some wrong things, but
No.
no. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. But I think it would be interesting. We should. That's something I think we'll bring to another episode. But at any rate, I thought it was funny that she sort of voluntold her husband to be the CTO.
Yeah, that was interesting though. That her husband
Is that good or bad?
is actually
Right?
like a voluntold CTO. So there is some tech there that is highly engaged, if not formally, as a founder or as a shareholder, executive or something like that.
Well,
but there is some tech very close in the wings, I guess I would say.
Yeah. Like I wonder if it's actually. It's kind of that thing where like if you don't have a co-founder, sometimes having one, like if you're a solo founder, you tend to have one that's like not all co-founder but not a name.
Right.
I wonder if
Right.
that's kind of what's happening.
Maybe. Yeah.
But at any rate, I perhaps even down the road, maybe it becomes more of a family business. When
Yeah.
we were at Collision, right, we actually met a couple of different businesses that were started by husband and wife.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I recommend that. Brooke also has two of those twins, so it might just be a lot of work for somebody's got to watch the kids.
Yeah, good point.
But anyway, and I want to make sure I get this. One of my favorite thing she said, just coming back to that impact point for 1 second, I just saw it in my notes and I don't want to forget it, was she said rather than like the hockey stick growth curve, it's very Canadian, but the impact hockey stick growth curve.
Right. So measuring.
I love that.
Yeah, measuring that impact with that.
Because it's going to tie also to your growth and your profit. Like, it's just a good way. It's like the triple bottom line kind of thing, you know?
Yeah,
but it's like of growth. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway, I thought
great.
that was really cool.
Yeah.
So Navio, Brooke Finlay, awesome. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for chatting with me, Chris.
Anytime.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're the co-host of the show, so you better be here.
I'm the sidekick.
Sidekick of the show. Thanks so much, folks. Startup Different. That's another episode. Please rate the pod and check us out on social. And we will be back next week with another interview. I'm very much looking forward to it. Until then, have a great rest of your week. Hey, you made it all the way to the end of the episode. Nicely done. If you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so the almighty algorithm can help others find us. Want more from Startup Different? Check out our book, Startup Different, the myth-busting blueprint for your multi-million-dollar business. Follow us on social. We're big on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also check us out at startupdifferent.com. Special thanks for this episode to Graham and our friends at Toronto Podcasts. Visit them at torontopodcast.ca. See you next week.